All right, so we're first of many, hopefully, on our new health and wellness podcast. I don't really think we have a name, right? We're just going Sidelined Media right now.
Yeah, not yet at least.
Yeah, yeah. And I think primarily this is going to be Joe's podcast, and various guests will be in from time to time. But one important guest that we have, Matt Tufts, and hopefully we'll see you on a regular basis. But Matt, good to see you. Why don't you jump in and tell us about your business and
Awesome.
Quick intro.
Yeah, so I'm the co-owner of Title Testosterone Weight Loss. My wife and I, Ariel, started this company not that long ago, but we started this company just in general, just to start educating the public really about optimal health and wellness, and provide a secondary means of healthcare to people that aren't able to get some.
You and Ariel both nurse
We're both nurse
correct?
practitioners,
Yeah.
sorry, yeah. So we're both family nurse practitioners, board certified. We both got our undergraduate degree at Mass College of Pharmacy and Health Sciences, also graduate degree there as well. We've been basically, we took some certification courses in the bioidentical hormone replacement therapy industry about a year ago.
Mm-hmm.
We've been doing education ever since. And then we've been also treating our own family and friends the past, I guess, 6 to 12 months. Like,
I'm one of them.
And, hi, Joel.
Joe's one of them too.
Yeah.
Well, at least
He got his blood test.
Recently.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So yeah, we basically started this company, and we've been doing a lot of things with our friends and family. They just decided, well, they've been telling us that you guys should open up on your own.
Yeah.
So we took a leap of faith and we did it on our own. So we're a couple months in, and we're living dreams right now. It's pretty awesome. Yeah.
Definitely.
Ever since we started school, this was one of our dreams, was to open up our own practice, and I think this is a great way to start. So
Congratulations.
Yeah.
Thank you.
And then, so what made you kind of go this route instead of the traditional medicine, and what have you seen in the past that kind of directed you?
Yeah, I mean, honestly, we did, before even opening this up, had goals to start our own, like, potentially urgent care, because you're seeing them pop up left and right.
Yep.
They're a great tool to use for healthcare when you need it and you're in a bind and everything like that. I mean, I currently work for one now, so I know how it is firsthand.
I prefer urgent care than going to a primary.
I mean, they get you in and out, and they talk to you, they listen to you, and they help you out. Exactly.
Yeah.
So they usually do what you really need at the time, and
Right.
they get you that quick fix that you need. But obviously, it's not really something that's going to help preventative medicine or longevity purposes.
Right. I go if I have something going on, or
Exactly.
It's not,
If you need,
certainly not for.
Yeah, and if you have if you have pneumonia or something, you need an X-ray,
Exactly.
you need something
But
like
that's
that.
not their business.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So
Right.
that's what we were looking into at first to starting this, and then ultimately what really led us down this path of like functional medicine, integrative medicine, is my wife had her own issues when we were in college. She was at her peak form of optimal health. Like, you would look at her and think like, wow, this girl looks like she's fit, healthy,
Right.
and she's ready to go, like, all the time. She's studying like 24/7, like working out 24/7, eating right, clean diet. And she had the worst gut issues that she's ever had in her life. She was bloated.
What was causing that?
Yeah, it was more about what we found out. What we came to is that when going to these traditional like healthcare providers, they weren't giving her answers. They were working her up for all these tests that just
Really?
became back negative. Yeah, breath tests, like X-rays, everything negative. Okay.
Yeah.
Blood work were all negative, all normal. Okay. This is different between our outlook versus traditional, is that normal is not what you should really think about. So
Definitely.
we went to a functional doctor down here in Boston, and identified that she had a leaky gut, and her gut was the issue. Her gut microbiome had holes in it. And all of these toxins that she was like ingesting was causing a lot of harm to her body and causing her to bloat. And
What were
everything.
these toxins like? Is it alcohol consumption or
No,
drug
we
use,
we
anything?
didn't even drink. We didn't even do anything. Our school was an accelerated program. We were like 3 years in and out. Like, we had a lot of stuff to focus on. I think it had to do a lot with her stress levels as well,
Okay.
and as well as potentially from her childhood was with antibiotics as a child. She had a lot of strep throat. She had a lot of ear infections.
Yeah.
So she had to get her tonsils and adenoids removed because of all these issues. So
Yep.
long-term studies have shown now that kids having antibiotics before the age of 3 have a tendency to develop like Crohn's disease, celiac disease, a lot of issues with their gut. So,
Wow.
and there's a lot of studies to go along with their gut
When
too.
our kids were young, Joe
Yeah.
being one of them,
Yeah.
we held off as much as we could.
Yeah,
Anytime they had an ear infection, we brought them to acupuncture.
Yeah,
Which
yeah.
solved the problem
A lot of issues.
98%
Yeah.
of the time.
Yeah.
Luckily for me, kind
Yeah.
of. I mean, they always told me like, you don't want to take antibiotics
Yeah,
to
and
solve your
you don't
issue, like-
necessarily need to, and
Exactly.
that's the problem. People look for a quick fix, and maybe you'll get relief, but maybe you won't. Honestly,
Or
long
it'll
term,
cause more of a long-term issue.
right? And it'll cause a
And,
lot more
yeah.
harm than good down the road.
My theory back then, and I think it's the basis of your business,
Yeah.
is I don't like the idea of treating a symptom. We should understand what the problem is.
Correct.
And that's what we
Root cause.
always talked about.
Exactly.
in
Right,
house.
and that's where we come in and are able to provide this type of treatment and approach to medicine, is because we're really looking for root cause medicine. Okay.
100%.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's what we want. We
Yep.
want to identify why people are feeling this way, why you have a hard time gaining muscle mass, why you have a hard time burning fat or losing fat or losing weight, why your cholesterol is high, why is it that versus not, why are you having insulin resistance?
So from a traditional medicine standpoint, and getting into the why, from the point being, why aren't these doctors actually giving you, like giving Ariel a GI gut map or whatever
Yeah.
it's called,
Yeah.
or why aren't they asking these questions versus just saying, we can give you this for this, or
Yeah.
you know,
Yeah,
not
I mean,
getting
her,
to the
that's
root
right.
cause.
Her doctor couldn't find the issue, which
Correct.
blows my
Yeah,
mind.
yeah, and that's where we're coming to this conclusion, is that doctors we put all of our trust into our doctors and our
Yeah.
healthcare, and I would say that our healthcare has probably one of the best healthcare systems in the world, based off of like sick medicine. Like if you have a
Exactly.
heart attack, you're going to be golden. 'cause
Especially
we're
in
gonna,
this part of the
Oh my
country, here in the
God, right in
Northeast.
the Northeast,
Yeah,
we're
Boston.
golden. Right,
Hey,
exactly.
where we
like
are now.
Mass Gen,
Couldn't be
Brigham,
better.
like we're right here. We're in the place to be. Okay.
Yep.
So all of those things, like stroke, heart attack, cancer even too, but we're trying to prevent that from the beginning too. So
Right. That's a whole nother-
and that's a whole nother topic that we can
Yeah,
dive into at some point. But I think a lot of these issues stem from insulin resistance, increase of visceral fat, obesity, a lot of diet intake, and all that stuff. So what was the question that you asked me again? So
Yeah,
like,
so
why
I
does
was
it
gonna
go?
ask-
Because
How come their
sorry, I'm
doctors
coming
aren't
back to
gut
that. So
mapping and-
Exactly.
So coming back to that, why her doctor didn't really find this issue is because we're not taught that in school. We're not really taught this way of thinking in medical school or nursing or PA school.
Yeah.
We're taught, here's a disease process and here's a treatment, okay?
Right.
We're not taught why do they have a disease process and how we can fix that from that beginning.
I got to ask you, is that because, and again, I think this might sound a little conspiracy theorist, but is that because Big Pharma has some sort of control over the education system?
When you look at Big Pharma and their funding, even with our regulations in government with their funding in the FDA, they're funding about 75% of our FDA funding is from Big Pharma companies, okay? About half of our educational materials
let me
is
ask you about
funded
that.
by Big Pharma.
I got to ask you about that. Is
Yeah.
that because Big Pharma has, when you say funding, they have the most clinical trials? Right,
Not,
per capita?
not necessarily.
Okay.
It's more about pushing medication on disease processes. It's
they're funding
medications. It's
because they have an agenda.
vaccines, medications are probably the top probably the top dollar for Big Pharma. Okay, they spend billions of dollars on marketing a year. Just think
Yeah.
about that though, like
And
billions
that's,
of
you know
dollars.
what I found out recently was that the U.S. and I believe New Zealand are the only two countries that are allowed to
think
market
Market,
drugs.
yeah.
So, and
Yeah.
the U.S.
At
spends
all.
$8
Wow.
billion dollars
And-
a year
and-
maybe on it.
yeah,
and it's it really is sick when you think about it, because it gets down to that saying that might sound a little like conspiracy theorist, but it's like a patient cured is a patient lost.
Right.
And that's just another stat you could scratch off the sheet. So
Exactly, yeah.
That's not what they want, which
Right,
is
and they
super
want
unfortunate, but-
to get you as sick as possible, as early as possible, to make
Yeah.
you a lifelong consumer.
And the data
Yeah.
shows that that's working.
It is.
They're
It is. And
achieving
you can
that.
see it. You
Yeah.
can see these kids
Yeah.
that we have now. Like, it's terrible. I have my own. We have our own children, a 4-year-old and a 2-year-old, almost 4 and almost 2. And we have to really pay attention to what we're feeding our kids right now because of what's going on and how 50% of our children are becoming overweight, obese, starting on medications,
Yeah.
daily medications, not even just like as needed things or like an antibiotic and that, like daily medications. And they're approving, the FDA is approving now anti-anxiety medications for kids at 6 years old.
Unreal.
And it comes into a play that we have a duty, and I think as an obligation to our community, to really define where we want to go with our world right now. So I think it really depends on where we're starting with our food intake, how we're really treating ourselves with environmental endocrine disrupting hormone. They're destroying our hormones as endocrine disruptors.
Well, listen, when we talk about data, again, I don't mean to sound like oldie McOld here at the table, but when 70s and 80s, we never saw anybody who was obese. We had one in our school too, maybe, who was overweight. It was very rare.
And it correlates with certain type of statistics for lab results too.
Right.
Like when we go in depth into, if we want to go through your lab panel later, like I can tell you a statistic from 1980. I'll just even say it right now. And for testosterone levels in the 1980s was 2 times the amount it was now. So we're looking at a silent epidemic right now in the men's health world, is that the total testosterone levels have dropped 35 to 45% in the last 40 years.
Well, let's go down the path.
No. So what I wanted to get into was the, I guess, stigma when it comes to testosterone and good stereotypes, bad stereotypes. So just starting out, what do you see as, in my world, I'm a big gym guy. I go to the gym a lot, and I see a lot of the younger guys now are jumping on testosterone or jumping on gear or steroids, and so it gets this sort of stigma of you take this amount of testosterone per week, you're going to blow up, gain this amount of muscle.
Sure.
And just if you want to go into these good versus bad stereotypes and how people can look at that.
So when you're looking at my business, we look at the bioidentical form of testosterone. Okay. When you look at the stereotypical, like the gym bros, like that culture,
exactly.
They're using anabolic steroids, so like synthetic versions, which can cause a lot harm, a lot more problems down the road, long-term
But
wise.
still testosterone.
Correct. Yeah, it is. It's an androlone. It's a testosterone. It's a type of testosterone, but it's a synthetic version.
So this is totally separate from like gear, like Tren or anabolic steroids.
Yes, correct.
Okay,
so like my practice, we only use compounding pharmacies that are FDA regulated.
Yep.
They compound their own type of their hormone, but it's naturally what we are just what
It's the closest thing to
it's
what
the
your body
closest thing to what your
produces.
body produces and what you lose over time. Okay?
Exactly. Okay.
So when you look at that culture of the gym bros and what they're doing to their bodies is actually a lot more harmful than good, because they're injecting themselves about 5, maybe 10, 20 times the amount. And that's causing
their
a
balls
lot.
really shrink, like everybody says.
Immediately. Yeah.
It's
And
like
it happens.
it's like other dick issues they have.
So yeah,
besides
because
that.
when they do that much, they're actually shutting, and they want to block estrogen and stuff like that. So these are things that can actually, we're probably going to go down too in a rabbit hole, is like how important estrogen is for men too, rather than women.
And testosterone for women.
Exactly. And testosterone, and there's a lot of different topics that we can hit on this, but what testosterone actually, it's a hormone that's produced in your brain, okay? So it actually stems down and it sends a signal down to the luteinizing hormone and the follicular stimulating hormone from the pituitary gland, okay?
Yep.
This is something that we lose over time as we age. And it's just what's happening now is that with all these environmental disruptors, the endocrine disruptors, and then there's also an epigenetics factor too. So your grandfather probably looked like he was 40 years old looking at pictures when he was in high school.
Right.
Your father, the same way. Like even when you were in high school, I bet, Joel, you're looking at kids in high school that were big, they were beards, they looked like men, okay?
I can think of one right now.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So they looked like men.
I was jealous. I was very jealous.
And 10 years from my age to Joey's too, is that even I noticed that difference. And looking at his age, like, kids in high school now, they look like they're 10. They look like going to college. They look like they're 12.
Grade that grew a full beard.
That's what I'm saying.
Exactly.
You can clearly see that evidence is that there's a decline, and there's a reason why. There's food. There's plastics. There's this all different type of data and information that's causing this to happen. And epigenetics is meaning like your father, my grandfather, it all passes down like from our DNA, honestly.
Yeah. Right.
And it breaks up, it disrupts our DNA process. And over time, you can see this based off of even lab levels. When we look at lab levels too of testosterone, when you look at giving 5 to 10 times the amount of testosterone as an anabolic synthetic steroid, you're going to do all of this, but you're also going to suppress a lot of like extra things, and you're going to cause more harm than good.
I see.
When you look at testosterone on a general scale right now, if you look at what the baseline normal lab values of a testosterone level, it goes from, we can even show you right now, it goes from, we have Joel's labs in front of me. This is a HIPAA violation, but he's okay with it.
I've given consent. Full permission to go to my labs.
So we'll go a little bit over some of the panels here.
So we're looking at lab values right now. It's the normal range for men right now is 264 to a value of 916. That gap is
All men,
huge.
all men, or is that
This
an
is
age
a
range?
male value.
All male
So
value,
this is
okay.
they base their information off of, let's say LabCorp does the billion lab tests over
Right.
last year.
Right.
Okay, they have a standard like deviation. So they
Over
have
all men.
over all men,
Which is a weird way to do it.
and it's weird,
It
and
should- probably should be age-based
It should
or
be,
range,
and it's
right?
all men that get their testosterone level checked.
Yeah. Yep.
So it's a standard deviation, and they do a bell curve, and then they just get the baseline of the low and the baseline of the high, and they
Yep.
bridge it right in between and say, hey, that's a normal range. That's not optimal either, too. So we're looking at people having testosterone levels, going to their primary care doctors, asking for testosterone levels, and they just actually brush them off the first time, and then you hound them again to get another
Exactly.
level checked, and then they just check only your testosterone level when there's a lot more important factors to look into too.
Yeah.
Matt, do you? Oh, I was gonna just
Yeah.
say, because you guys are testosterone and weight loss.
Sure.
Yep.
On the testosterone side,
Yeah.
do you want to talk about, other than, I think the typical stigma is like my dick can't get hard, so
You're right. Yeah.
yeah,
Like what are these
I'm
people
low
coming
T.
in with?
Yeah, and-
By the way, I want to state that was not my problem. Not
And to that
Joe
point
needs to
too,
hear that.
though, exactly. Not just like the physical benefits
Sure.
of testosterone,
Yeah.
but how does that affect mood or even getting into mood, like your
Yeah.
relationships with others? There's like
Yeah,
that
there's a-
stereotype of low T, high T individual,
Yeah,
but what
right.
does that mean from a non-physical standpoint?
Right, from not even like just the body composition and everything like that. There's also in like the sex drive, and that those are the two stigmas, is like muscles and sex. Like you think you're just going on testosterone
Right.
for those two things.
Which
Yeah.
is why I didn't think I needed mine
Correct.
checked. Not
Yeah.
I didn't have any symptoms.
symptoms,
The-
yeah.
I'd say the only symptom that I had, and I didn't even think it was my workouts weren't as great as I thought they should.
Right, right.
Other than that,
And you
But
could just chalk
looking
it up
back,
to
I
was
them
thinking,
getting
I'm like,
older.
Correct, and that's
I
what a
thought
lot of
my
guys.
levels are going to be way high.
Right, right,
you know?
and that's what a lot of guys do. They think like they're okay. They're just getting by. They're in their 40s, upper 40s, in their 50s and 60s. They're getting by. They think they're okay. They just lose a little bit of motivation. They lose a little bit of their drive,
Yeah.
and that's what happens. They start losing their motivation to exercise, to
Yeah.
take care of themselves. Even they have like this flat affect kind of thing. Like they're just not really happy about things. They're not really enthused about life, and they can just go day by day living.
That
their-
wasn't me either.
Yeah, yeah.
I didn't feel that. I
Right,
had
yeah,
none of
yeah,
that.
yeah. And they a lot of these guys that come to us are that way though. They have like brain fog, they have concentration issues,
Yes.
and they have a lack of motivation to do a lot of
Yeah.
because they're really successful people. They have businesses, they have lives, they have families that they need to take care of. So.
Right. But I think I guess my point
Yeah.
is not to keep bringing it back to me. I didn't have that,
Right.
and I was still low.
And you were
we'll get
still
into my
low.
results,
Right, yeah.
But I was shocked because you mentioned these things to me.
Yeah.
Low motivation, pretty motivated every day.
Right.
Lack of concentration, never could concentrate, so that
Right.
was nothing to I didn't, not much brain fog.
Right, right.
Went to the gym every day.
Right, and you look like the epitome of health. Like you do what you do, and you do what you can to take care of your body. Like
Right.
eat right, you work out, you do sauna, you do cold bath, you do
Right.
all these things,
Right.
and your levels are still low.
Yeah.
They're very low.
Yeah.
And
And
you
so
didn't
does that make you think it's just something we can't control now with like microplastics in the water
Yeah,
and
yeah,
all this
so-
stuff I know we talk about, but
Right.
it's to some point it is true.
It's
and
affecting
people.
people, and,
Yeah.
and that's on a higher scale where it's like they're doing these studies where they're finding that on average an American is consuming like a credit card size amount of
Yeah.
microplastics a
They're
year.
finding
So-
microplastics in utero.
Yeah, and
it-
that's a problem too. So it's like it starts before even like you're born. That's
Exactly.
what's happening. And
Joey keeps trying to get me to buy one of those water filtration systems.
yeah,
at
the reverse
home.
osmosis.
Yeah,
That's
he's-
honestly,
he's on
I
the,
I literally just ordered one. We just got one for
I
our
think
house.
we're gonna do that.
You
he's
kinda,
on the spring water, which is good, but he's buying it in the big jugs.
The
and
jugs, the
it's like-
plastics.
I'll
too,
only
yeah.
drink spring water. I won't drink.
Here it is,
filtered
good
water.
example
It's only
right here.
spring.
Exactly, in the
A quick
glass.
little
He's
plug.
got the
No
glass.
free ads, but
Yeah, exactly.
But anyway, no, I hear you.
But yeah, there's a lot of endocrine disrupting chemicals that are affecting our levels, and it's on a wide range of everything. So it can go down from genetics. It can be passed down
Sure,
that way.
yeah.
It could be what you're eating. All the pesticides that we're getting sprayed on our food is also a big thing too. I mean, when you look at the statistics from the 1970s and 80s too, is that we had 700 chemicals that we were only spraying on our foods, and now there's over 10,000.
Yeah.
When you compare us to Europe, there's still 700 to this day there. And now
people will
That-
say
that pisses me off.
For
Yeah.
instance, with glyphosate, like going
Yeah.
into that, I mean, it really is crazy because people say there's no studies that says it's bad or there's no studies this and that, but just from looking, it's killing these these living, what do you call it,
Organisms,
bacteria and
yeah,
organisms
yeah.
on these plants, and
Correct.
if it's doing this in an instant to these organisms, what is it doing when we're digesting this every day?
Exactly, and that's
So-
where issues like leaky gut and insulin
Exactly.
resistance and fat and visceral fat can happen. And
Yeah.
that's where a lot of our disease processes, what we've learned over the past 2 years of studying this type of medicine is that a lot of our disease processes happen and stem from visceral fat. So what visceral fat may be, it's not that little like belly fat that you have. There's another layer in between your stomach, which is your abdominal muscle wall, and then in between your abdominal muscle wall and your organs, your vital organs,
Yep.
there's a layer of visceral fat, and that's
Okay.
what is stemming, and that's what's causing a lot of these disease processes. Men with low testosterone have a higher insulin resistance and have a higher rate of visceral fat in between that area,
I see.
okay?
Yeah.
And that's what's causing a lot of their disease processes, like high cholesterol, potentially diabetes, like pre-diabetes. When we were looking at Joel's, like, he's 1 point away from pre-diabetes, and how is that possible?
Exactly.
Yeah,
I
when he's
couldn't
doing
believe- I
all
mean,
that.
Decent diet.
Yeah,
maybe
like-
too much, maybe
Yeah.
too much sugar, but
But then again, like you take care of yourself and you would think
Yeah.
nothing of it. And when you look at the root cause of your illness, maybe it is a little bit of visceral fat from sugar intake, from processed foods that you've had over the years.
Right.
And that's not, I guess it's not really your fault either. But it's just that maybe the education wasn't there or that aspect or what
No,
you
I
were
think
eating.
it's my fault.
But yeah,
a sweet
for
tooth.
the majority of Americans or people in our communities, it's not like they're not aware of this stuff, and that's what that's our goal of our company, and our mission is to provide this education and doing these things
Yeah,
like
I agree.
a weekly podcast or whatever that we decide to do is that we want to provide this education to the general public, and I think
Yeah.
more people are aware of this, the healthier we can be about, as a community and a country, to be honest. Too.
And yeah, it definitely is a good way of having. I mean, I never went to medical school. I haven't even graduated college
Right.
yet. But going into this, like all I'm consuming now is people like Huberman, people like Brecca,
Right.
people like Casey Calamines on Joe Rogan,
Yeah.
and all this. And I think it's super beneficial because I don't know, I guess the science behind everything, but
yeah.
I do know that this is right, this is wrong,
Right.
and it sounds more reasonable coming from these people because they're just telling you straight up.
It's
when,
just facts.
When
Like,
you
it's just
talk to
genuine
primary
facts.
care,
Bullshit.
Yeah.
you're not
It's
getting a
all-
straight answer.
Right.
And from
It's
these
rooted in
people,
data.
Right.
Exactly. They're
Right.
telling you straight up, and it feels right for some reason.
Yeah,
You
and-
know you shouldn't be eating these high processed foods. You know you should be eating whole foods. You know
Exactly.
you should be working out. Like,
Right, and
it should
and they
just come
scare
easy.
you away from eating meat, and they scare you away from having
Yeah.
like saturated fats, like good, like butter, like
Right.
like all of these things. They're scaring you away, but
Yep.
all of their data is based off of information that's plugged by big pharma,
Yep.
by big industry, and it has a huge confirmation bias within the medical world because what I do is not really accepted to many of the providers around here. Like if I were to talk to one of these practitioners that I'm putting your patient on testosterone, they would say, you're crazy. Like he's healthy, he's normal. Why are you doing that
You
to
know,
him?
they're also going to say, well, you're not a doctor, you don't know.
Exactly.
And my response is, well, you are a doctor, and that's why you don't know.
Right,
Because I think
exactly.
they are so pre-programmed
Right, yeah.
and stubborn, and they're not.
It's a
I say
confirmation
they.
bias.
This
It's a bias.
This is a blanket
Yeah,
statement
exactly.
I'm
Right,
making, but
right.
it's a confirmation bias. But
Yeah.
I also feel like they're stubborn, and
Right.
they don't
And
want
they
to
don't
look
wanna know
outside
it.
of what they
Yeah.
initially had learned.
They
And
don't
this isn't
want
the
to.
like shit on doctor show or anything.
Right,
Like,
right.
obviously, what they're
It
doing
somewhat
is
is,
amazing. But
Right.
It somewhat is. I mean,
but you have to shed light to the fact that there are other ways. There is a new level of how people should
Yeah.
feel, and people should open
Right.
their eyes to the fact that maybe this isn't normal. That I wake up with brain fog every day,
Right.
don't get quality sleep, feel like shit in the gym, don't work out. Period. And to that point, I wanted to go over what you think optimal looks like.
Yeah.
So from a metabolic standpoint, and I know that's kind of a buzzword again, but what does it look like to be optimal?
So
in the health world.
In the health world, yeah. In our industry.
In our side of the-
Yeah,
or your
exactly.
side of the
Yeah,
health
yeah,
world,
yeah.
yeah.
No, yours too. You're in it. Yeah.
Exactly.
So honestly, here's a crazy statistic. So how many % of the U.S. population do you think is actually metabolically healthy?
percent.
Probably
Percentage.
lower than you'd
I'll
think.
take. Well, let's take a guess. You want to go first? Or you want me to go?
Metabolically healthy, I would say.
So metabolic health is like you have good blood pressure, okay?
Yep.
So your blood pressure is stable. You have a fasting insulin level, a fasting glucose level less than 100.
Yep.
Your triglycerides are like below 150. And your waist circumference is like less than, I think, 40 for men and like 30 or 30 something for women or something like
Oh.
that. So it's like these categories that fit. So metabolically fit and healthy.
Let's take a stab at it, Joe.
Yeah.
What
How
do you
how
say?
many? What's the percentage of Americans are metabolically healthy?
15%.
Okay.
5.
Okay. So in the middle, it's 12% of the U.S.
Joe,
is
rewind.
healthy.
Closer.
Yeah,
Okay.
it's closer.
So 88% of our country is not in that category. So that means 88% of these people either aren't aware of it or don't understand why they are the way they are. Okay.
Yeah.
Yep.
Wow.
And it should open people's eyes. It should,
Is
because
this your opinion?
no,
or
that's
is this fact?
That's a fact. There's statistic data on it that's saying that there is only 12% of the population is metabolically healthy.
All right, I got to push you on something.
Yeah.
Because you'll have the other side of the community saying
Sure.
we have data as well.
Yeah.
How do
Exactly.
we know your data or the data that you view
So-
is more reliable than theirs?
Right. So when we're looking at our studies, we use grade A randomized controlled trial studies. They don't.
Like you use double-blind placebo,
Yes,
grade
exactly.
A, randomized.
Yes. That's top of the top. That's the only way that I can back my information up is through those type of studies.
And it's
Yeah.
not funded by
Any
anything
type
that
of-
This is something I've
has an
recently
agenda.
learned too
Correct, yeah.
from looking into all this is
Right.
the importance of when people reference a study. Like, oh, we have
Correct.
studies that seed oils are more heart healthy than using butter or olive oil.
Yeah,
and I'm
no,
like,
it's causing
looking at that,
inflammation and
probably-
chronic disease.
Probably people are like, oh shoot, like that's
But
not true.
to,
Let
so
me look
to
into
that
this.
point,
Yeah.
I think what he's saying is,
Yeah.
or what we're saying is, there are various studies that will benefit whomever wants to benefit.
Exactly.
But
Exactly.
Your point
and
is,
you have to be careful what you're looking
you
at.
have zero agenda studies.
No agenda studies. Yeah, exactly. So when you're looking at those type of studies that are getting pushed out, like seed oils are fine and healthy, and fast food's okay for moderate time and stuff like that,
Yep.
they're basing this information off of an insurance database, which is
Yep.
a grade D retrospective study.
Yep.
Okay, so that doesn't give us any type of information other than the fact that insurance is looking at what their patients are actually getting on medication, what their labs look like, and
Yeah.
nothing else. They're not doing follow-up care. They're not doing anything
You
like
know
to
what's
see.
crazy
Yeah.
about that?
Yeah.
You would think the insurance companies are motivated to get people off of more medication and healthier.
You would think so. Yeah, you would think so. But then they wouldn't be using the insurance companies because they wouldn't have to use them and
Yeah.
use them for their health to get appointments, to go see their doctors, to get on medications so they can make it. There's a lot of back end, behind the scenes stuff with insurance companies that I fully don't even understand myself. But there's middlemen that are involved with like lobbyists, insurance companies,
Oh, yeah.
and
Yeah.
making
Oh,
money.
100%.
And there's
That's
a
a
lot
whole
of
nother
that's
thing.
like
That's a big business in
That's a big
itself.
yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. And that's like not even conspiracy because that's actually legitimate facts. I know a guy who went on Joe Rogan, Brigham Bueller.
Oh, I just listened to that.
listened to him. Yeah.
Yeah.
So that podcast is pretty something to
it's a
listen
good
to.
one.
Oh,
He's been
100%.
on it 3 times actually.
That's jaw dropping.
Yeah,
Everything
all
he
of the
says.
information that he provides and the statistics that he has is actually on his website too. So like a lot of our information we hand to our patients. Like I handed Joel a packet of information when he left my office
Well,
to look over and to review and make his own decision.
Because you should know for yourself.
Exactly. Educate
yeah.
yourself. Here's the information. I'm going to give you everything that you need. And if you have questions on it, please ask me because I can help you. Because it's really hard to distinguish what's like real and not, and what's good and bad in those types of literature.
Joe, for the interest of time in this podcast
Yeah.
and this episode, do we want to dive into just my experience and my results? Or,
Oh, 100%. Yeah, I would say just for people to understand title better, here's a patient right here,
Yeah.
and then yourself. So
I
if you
don't
wanna
call
just get
myself a
into it.
patient. I'm a client.
Fine, exactly. Yeah.
The client, yeah, exactly. So when we're looking at Joel's labs, we did over, I believe, 50 different tests for Joel just to look at his basic.
And let's back up. So the way the process went was, did you and I have a phone call first?
We did, yeah.
We went, I had asked you a bunch of questions.
Yeah, exactly. So anybody that has interest in our services, we do like a free discovery phone call. It's 15 to 20 minutes long. You just basically pepper us with questions of what you want to
Right.
know, what we're about, how the process works, and that's kind of how Joel and I talked about this whole thing. So he was peppering me with questions left and right.
Yeah.
He just wanted to know how it worked because he's not, like he said, he's not a big traditional medicine guy, and he wants to see. He was interested. He wanted to see what his levels were, and he wanted to see what we can offer him. So, basically, looking down that, from the patient perspective, the client perspective, we send our patients to a lab. They get their labs done, and then we follow up with them within that week or the next week. Okay?
Took 2 seconds.
It's really
It was
quick
very
and easy. We send
Yeah.
them an
I was
email.
a pain in the ass because he kept asking me, have I done it yet? And I
Yeah,
didn't.
exactly.
But
It's
once I
more
finally
it's up to
did
the patient to do the lab.
Once
So-
I finally did it, I was in that chair for 5 minutes.
and then they're in
Yeah.
and out. And then the biggest point is that when you get your labs done through your primary care, and I have experience with this too, is that they just say everything looks normal, you're all set. Like,
Yeah.
See you later. They just kind of brush it off. And what we like to do is we have a full hour and a half sit down with you. Even the women's hormones actually is about 2 hours long because there's more information. There's about 5 hormones that we go in depth with them too. So we do that whole conversation, and about half of that is to go through the lab analysis to see what is going on, root cause, what we can identify, what we can improve on, what's really happening in symptom correlation, and see what's going on in his life and anybody's life.
Yeah.
And when we were looking at Joel's labs, a lot of his basic metabolic panel is healthy, and that's normal, and that's all good. So we looked at basic tests, which you would get normally from your primary care, which is usually okay, and they tell you everything's normal. But when we looked at cholesterol, okay, this is another topic of debate.
Yeah, so I don't think my primary would say my cholesterol was okay.
Yeah, because
and you and I had the conversation.
Technically,
saying,
it's fine. I'm not worried about it. I'm not concerned at all. His cholesterol was 210. When you look at the normal range, it's 100 to 199, and that's the total cholesterol. And you want, in textbook terms, you want that below 200, okay?
That's fairly new over the last 10 years.
No, that one's about 30 years.
Because it used to be 300.
Correct. So when you look at cholesterol, they just created this medication called the statin. A lot of people are on this medication, which has a lot of detrimental side effects, especially lowering testosterone about 50%.
Yeah.
And this,
if you're on a statin,
if you're on a statin, it does lower it. Yeah, and it causes more side effects than good. It doesn't really even help your levels. It just helps your serum cholesterol go down. It doesn't help much preventative-wise. When you look at cholesterol in the 1970s, 1980s, it used to be, before the statin came out, the total level was under 300 was normal. You had nothing to worry about. Once the statin came out, if you were above 200, you're going to die. You're going to have a heart attack. You're going to have a stroke if you don't go on this medication. So they just pop this out like candy.
Okay, I'm going to play devil's advocate on that. Just for anybody viewing or listening, was there data that came out that said, well, we're seeing people who have over 200, they're in danger?
So no, there is no statistic evidence showing that
So it's
people with
because these
cholesterol.
statins is what you're saying.
Yes, it's pushed by, again, big pharma to make a quick dollar on the patients, and then it gets a whole cycle, which gets taught into literature, and then the literature is taught to the students, and then the students it's a cycle, and it just continuously happens.
Okay, so I just want to bring this up as well. Statins aren't bad.
No,
In other
if you
words,
need
there are
them, you
people
need
who
them. Yeah.
What I'm learning, and I want to know if you have any data on this, you might not, we don't have to get on this path if you don't, that there are certain people who do need a statin.
Yeah.
But statins they don't pair well with cholesterol in the long term.
Correct. Yeah.
And if you are prescribed a statin, you should really be on it somewhere from 3, maybe a maximum of 6 weeks.
Yeah.
And then walk away.
Yeah.
But most doctors, or all, are prescribing
You shouldn't even.
statins
Okay,
forever.
no, this is the problem. You shouldn't even go on it right away. That's what they want to do. So instead of just identifying root cause, identifying what's going on, why do you have cholesterol maybe above range or in the 270 range, hovering around like a little bit?
Address that issue.
Address that issue.
Yep.
Maybe you're not exercising. Maybe you're not eating right. Maybe you're not taking care of your sleep. Maybe your stress is high. Maybe you're smoking. Like, there's a lot of different lifestyle factors that people need to pay attention to first before opting in for medication.
And is that something that you guys, again, we'll circle back into your lab work and whatnot, but is that something that you guys say, if you see something that catches your eye on their lab work, are you going to jump right into, okay, well, let's cover everything that you're doing in your lifestyle to see if we can change that from...
Absolutely,
Exactly.
Yeah.
And that's what's so quality about what you guys do and that not enough people are doing right now.
And that's why we pay attention to these facts, because it's real facts that we're just trying to just educate the community. And we don't want to opt in to just start you on medication, especially... Even looking at the weight loss medication, that is actually it's becoming a gold standard, not even pushed by, it is pushed by Big Pharma because of different reasons, but it's also being pushed by this industry as well because of how beneficial it is on insulin resistance, on decreasing people's A1C, how quickly it works, and how basically how it can change your gut-brain metabolism and effects that you want for your patients to have. So like it basically can change their neurological behaviors in order to like have an optimal lifestyle. So like you're decreasing cravings of sugar and carbohydrates with this medication as well. So it's not just like you're going to get that quick fix, but you also have to put in that effort into it too.
You're referring to
semaglutide. So when you're looking at that medication, it's really beneficial when you want to start somebody on weight loss. But for cholesterol purposes, no, you don't want to just throw somebody on this because there's so many side effects with this medication that people don't realize, and they don't consent for these type of side effects as
I've
well.
read it's things like diabetes. It's there are some studies now that say that long-term use of a statin can lead to dementia, Alzheimer's.
Right.
Real data on this.
Exactly, and there's real data on how the diabetes aspect of this whole situation too is in any other country in the world, they consider diabetes as type 3. I mean, they consider Alzheimer's and dementia as type 3 diabetes.
Yep.
So we're the only country that calls it diabetes, and I mean Alzheimer's, dementia, and everything like that. What the study is now showing is that long-term diabetes and sugar and insulin resistance is causing this decline in mental cognition and memory and everything like that. So correcting this issue at a younger age of insulin resistance is probably preventative for Alzheimer's and dementia disease. Yeah, it's pretty crazy.
We can keep going down these rabbit
sorry.
holes, but again, I think in the interest of time, and you don't have to apologize because we're all doing that.
Yeah.
Let's continue
Yeah.
on what you saw with my labs here.
Right. So
sure.
that was basically his cholesterol was down, and then when we're looking at his estradiol, that was another red flag that came back. Estradiol is really important in men for many reasons. Is that one of the factors of testosterone, it breaks down into dihydrotestosterone and then estrogen. And when it breaks down into estrogen, we use it for cardioprotective reasons, okay? It protects the heart, it protects our bones, it protects muscles. It's really good for those reasons. So when you're looking at people with insulin resistance, they have an increased amount of estrogen, which breaks down to estradiol, which breaks down to estrone, and that's what's causing increase of visceral fat. So when you have an increased visceral fat, you're going to produce more estrone and estradiol, but your testosterone is going to decrease over time too. Yeah. So that's an effect. So that could be why maybe you have a low testosterone as well because of that issue. But your estrogen was low, so you're not really having good protective benefits over time for your heart health now too. Yep. This is long term. This is what we look at too, is like preventative wise. Like, why would you want that to be high? Well, it's because it's going to help you protect from heart disease and stroke and down the line and heart attacks.
Some doctors will say, well, if you're going to get on testosterone replacement therapy, you're more at risk for heart attack.
Yeah, and that's proven time and time again. That's not true at all. And testosterone is actually an extreme benefit in cardioprotective health as well. And there's so many studies and so much literature on that, which I have many of different.
I read it,
and he's read it. Yeah, and there's actually a giant study that just came out about this, about prostate cancer, about cardiovascular health, which is the Traverse study. If you guys want to research that on your own too, but it's tremendous information that the public should be aware about cardioprotective health, how testosterone therapy is actually beneficial in men in higher quartiles than there are in lower quartiles, which has an increased risk of those disease processes, of cancer, of those type of things, of metabolic issues when your testosterone's low. Yeah. So you're prone to risk when you're lower rather than at a higher level. So that's where the data comes from my side of the picture. So.
And then when you're compiling all this data, you see these red flags, so to speak. How does the process work from them? You call in your client and kind of sit down with them, go over everything. And I know a lot of times if you're speaking to a PCP or someone in the medical field, it's kind of tough because there's that barrier of education versus not really educating that field. So how do you go about breaking down?
We honestly do a presentation about this stuff. Like I even did a presentation for Joel to introduce the topic of these hormones, of why it's beneficial, what the culture has been over the past 30 to 40 years, what the stigma is, and then we introduce like the specific studies or like the benefits, the negatives of it, the side effects of the medication, of the hormone. We go through all of that in depth in the initial consultation, and then we do like what you can expect from the treatment within like a timeline, a time frame of like what you can hope for, what you can look out for, and what you can expect with treatment. So that's
in
kind of
this
how.
context, this treatment was the specifically, like, remind me what path you guys are going down.
So right now, Joel's going to be starting on testosterone replacement therapy. He already started. And he's only about a week or two in now.
About a weekend.
Yeah.
Week and a day.
Yeah, week and a day. So. The process is very simple. You can speak for yourself too. But yeah, we go through a very in-depth like education aspect to this whole thing. People are very hesitant to start this, and I don't pressure anybody into doing anything that they don't want to do.
Yeah.
We have plenty of people that come get their information, they get their blood test, and they want to wait. I have no problem with that, but they end up coming back too. They look up their stuff on their own, they do the data and their research on their own, and they look at the information, and they make that decision on their own, and they end up actually wanting to take part in the
great.
treatment. So,
Yeah.
and there's also different things that we looked at for Joel that we're probably going to look at down the road, such as thyroid health and how important that is.
Yep.
Melatonin, DHEA, these types of hormones as well that we want to look at that
My
people don't
DHEA
really.
levels were pretty good.
They were
'cause I've
okay.
been
He's been on it, yeah. So he's been on
exactly.
DHEA,
For
which
years.
not many people are even aware about.
Yeah.
So I was impressed that he was on it. We still want to get him up, but he's on it. He's on a good spectrum. We like that range from 300 to 600 in men.
What was
so
I at?
he was at right below actually 300. I think you were. Yeah, 266.
Oh,
You
I
were
was
right
below
below.
the range?
You were.
Oh, I didn't realize
my
that.
range.
Yeah,
you were normal.
your range, yeah.
But before, our range, you were a little bit below.
Set a
but-
different standard.
Yeah. But
Yeah.
when you create testosterone in your body, DHEA is a precursor hormone, so it's going to set yourself up. You're gonna end up this negative feedback mechanism once you introduce more testosterone to your system. It's just
Yeah.
going to increase these levels just more, especially with supplementation as well. So
Yeah.
he's
And
already
then-
talking about that. Yeah.
So that's kind of full circle. You go over the red flags, what you
Yeah.
think your patient or client needs.
Correct.
You're able to provide that, and then so I guess from this point on, if you were to go about, I know a ton of people are going to be asking this question, especially people my age who, even if their levels are low, you don't want to put them on TRT, testosterone
Correct.
replacement therapy.
Yeah.
And if you wanted to jump into that, so why you wouldn't want someone my age, I'm 23, and
Right.
in that age frame, I guess, to go on TRT, and then what they can actually do to naturally boost testosterone.
Right. So, yeah, people in their 20s to 30s on testosterone has just a high risk of infertility, and there's a lot of issues with that aspect. So, if you're wanting to have children, it's definitely not something that you want to start right away, especially at such a young age.
So you're saying I can't have any more kids?
Yeah, I'm sorry.
Thank goodness.
So yeah, at such a young age, it's tough to really start this type of hormone replacement because not everybody at that age is actually low. Okay.
Yeah.
Some are, and that could be from different things that what we've talked about before,
Yeah.
and it could be environmental, like the epigenetic issues, the endocrine disrupting chemicals, and that type of stuff. And if you're optimizing your lifestyle and you still have low testosterone and you have certain issues, there's further testing that needs to be done.
Yeah.
So looking at like people with lower levels at that age, there are ways to naturally boost testosterone.
Yeah.
There's supplementation such as medications like Clomid and clomiphene,
Okay.
injections such as HCG.
Yep.
Those are different things that can help stimulate natural production inside your
Exactly.
body at a rate that is normal for you, okay?
Mm-hmm.
And you can go on the supplementation and get you to where you want to be, and you don't have to be on this for lifelong too. So
Okay.
that's the one thing where I think people need to realize is that there are other ways than just going right to that testosterone, right to that
Exactly.
anabolic steroid in the
Yeah,
gym
right.
because
Yeah.
you see these guys.
Right.
And you want to be like them at that age. But then you think, hey, if I went on that and you look back 10 years when you're 32, you want to have kids. What did I do to myself? Like, why did I do
Exactly.
that? Why did I make that decision?
Right.
Yeah.
And now you're scrambling to get your levels up, your sperm count up, because that's what it does. It decreases
Yeah.
that endogenous testosterone, which decreases your sperm production
Essentially, you shut
ultimately.
down your ability to produce testosterone.
Yeah,
on
and it's
your
it's
own.
really
Yeah.
detrimental, and it can have a lot of effects psychologically too when you
Oh,
get to that
100%.
level.
Yeah.
It can cause a lot of problems with marriage and stuff like that too. So
Yeah. And then so these natural testosterone boosters, was it enclomiphene?
and clomiphene and then clomiphene, so Clomid. Yeah, so they're
Okay,
both
yeah.
they're similar medications and they're relatively safe.
Okay.
You do them and you can start them at any age, and they really help to just get that natural production going.
Okay.
And once you start optimizing your life and with diet, nutrition, exercise, and you're doing all the right thing, you're getting enough sleep, and you're supplementing with vitamin D,
Yep.
zinc, magnesium, all these type of supplementations. When you're doing all of that, and then you start to add this on, you can actually kick in gear that endogenous, that natural production,
Yeah.
and then it will start to reverse the course, and then you
Okay,
can actually
great.
produce it on your own. So
Awesome.
those things are really important to have, and it's good to just educate the public about that too. I
Yeah.
think.
And is this something that people could get like at a CVS, like for no context or for context here, but
Yeah.
anyone who doesn't have any idea about how to go about this?
Yeah,
what
so the
would you recommend?
clomiphene and clomiphene and HCG need to be prescribed by a provider. So
Okay.
those are prescription strength. But the other stuff, like the other ones that I think you had questions on too earlier, was like the testosterone boosters that get marketed to like
Exactly,
on like you see on the news channel about like
Yeah.
the older person, like
Or
we're
even
gonna-
things like ashwagandha,
Yeah.
tongat, ali, like all these
those
different
things,
roots and mushrooms.
yeah, and those things have a good effect on your body and everything like that. But they just help with symptoms, like they increase libido and maybe
Exactly.
some motivation and
Like
like
a
that.
Yohimbe bar.
Yeah, exactly. So like
yeah.
those things help with that aspect of that, and it may increase your level. But and especially with like the marketing scheme of like, hey, we're gonna increase your testosterone if you take this pill. There's actually a lot of harm to do that stuff because it can actually cause liver failure. And there's a lot of GI doctors that see supplemental overdose or liver failure from
yeah.
testosterone booster supplements.
Yeah, definitely.
And because they're, I'm not a fan of the FDA, but they're not FDA regulated at all, and
Yeah.
not compounded at all too. So
It
it's
just swings in the whole other direction.
exactly
There's not enough oversight.
Exactly.
Yeah.
There's not enough oversight, so
Yeah,
it can
okay.
be a lot dangerous. And there's we've actually seen firsthand somebody become like go into liver failure from going on a supplementation from this.
Wow.
So yeah,
And
yeah.
you won't see those issues with these prescription
no,
testosterone
you
boosters.
won't see those.
And plus,
yeah.
you monitor.
Yeah.
Going back to my experience,
exactly.
I think I was a little hesitant.
Yeah.
There are.
I think it's good to be hesitant as
Yeah,
well.
no,
I think it's perfect. I think
just
that's great.
Even just the change of lifestyle, knowing
Right.
that I'm going to have to continue this the rest of my
Right.
life,
Yeah.
was hard for me to get used to.
Yeah.
But then I was thinking, okay, I either don't do it, and I could suffer,
Right.
and not be at my optimal, health performance level.
Right.
You had recommended or said there are two forms. There was the cream and there was the injections.
Correct, yes.
And you would recommend the cream to
I
start.
recommend to start with the creams. Yeah,
Yeah.
I think well, it's really preference based. Whatever guys want to do. I mean, they do a lot of research coming in, so they have some knowledge before too.
Right.
There's also a third option, pellets, which I don't offer. I think that also is an issue in its own because of
What is it?
A pellets. You get it surgically inserted in your skin, and it
wow.
breaks down over time.
Yeah.
see.
So these guys have. It's really only beneficial when you're, I guess, military men that are going overseas that aren't going to be home for 3
So
months.
you don't
'cause
want to deal with the injections.
yeah,
and
yeah,
things.
exactly. And
Okay,
they
that makes
probably
sense.
can't really travel that
Yeah.
well with the military, but like they increase their testosterone. It has giant peaks, so like sends you spikes your way up to like the
Yeah.
2,000 to 3,000 range,
Oh,
and then
wow.
it brings you back down. So a lot of like psychological adverse
Oh, I
effects in
wouldn't like
that.
that.
Yeah, so
Yeah.
there's a lot of like downfalls with it. People love it though. Some people really do enjoy it.
I suppose the injection can do that too, in a way.
It can if you're not properly doing it. So back, I would say 20 years ago, when the urologists were giving out testosterone injections, they were doing one big dose of 200 milligrams right in the muscle once every 2 weeks. So they would send that big spike and then come right down, and these men would not feel better. They would feel worse. They'd have depression. They'd have anxiety.
Yeah.
They'd have all of these issues. And nothing would help them. Nothing would solve their issues. So
Yeah.
what happens now is that we're finding data and coming out now is that you can give injections in a subcutaneous form, which is like when an insulin needle, tiny, small amounts in daily. You can do daily. You can do every 3 days or every 2 days of injections over a week span. So when we do those type of injections, these levels, we're trying to get to that peak, but we're trying to maintain at an optimal level at
Oh, okay.
that
I
at that
thought it
form.
was 2 times a week.
You can do 2 times a week,
Okay.
and there's also data showing like you can break it down into 7. I don't do that because nobody's going to want to do that every day of the week, and it's most beneficial for men to do 2 to 3 times a week.
Yeah, I'm doing the cream now.
Yeah.
And I have to do it 2 times a day, 12 hours apart.
Right.
It's a little bit of a pain in the ass.
Yeah.
Just mentally for
To
me,
get
because
there, right, yeah,
it's like,
yeah.
I like to do the sauna, but I can't do it right after the sauna.
Right.
I got to let my body temperature cool
Cool down,
If I do
yeah.
it before the sauna, I got to do it way before the
Right,
sauna.
right.
And then at night, it's like, so
Yeah.
that, full disclosure has been a little hard to get used to. I'm getting there. It's been a week.
Yeah, it's adjustment. It's an
Yeah,
adjustment phase,
yeah.
and when you get into it and you start doing it over a month, and you're gonna be like it's second nature after
Right,
that. And
exactly.
and then the cream actually helps you get like the most optimal levels at a 24-hour cycle because of how often you're applying and how beneficial it is. Just it gets absorbed so much faster through. You have to apply it through your scrotum, so
Yeah.
you have to apply it directly to your
call it my
your
nut
balls.
cream.
Yeah, your nut cream. So your nut butter is what we
Nut
like to
butter
call
is
it.
what it is, yeah. Yeah.
So you apply the butter, and then it's a 24-hour process. So you think about the medication; it works at over 24 hours. It has a half-life of 12. So you want to get to that level. That's why we say wait 12 hours and apart. So you're always at that main steady peak, and then
It's okay if like I go 10 to 12.
yeah,
sometimes,
exactly.
right?
You can have a plus or minus 1 to 2 hour ratio difference, but yeah, that's the goal is to get you into that level, that
So
steady
in
state
the
of mind.
interest of time, because
Yeah.
I got to go soon.
Yeah, well, I was going to say, and you could interrupt me here, but I was going to ask, like, final notes, if you could leave someone who's probably like 18 to 25, around my age, with a general thought, and maybe
That's a good idea.
scare them straight on the ideas of supplementing with testosterone this young, and then someone who's a bit older, like 50 plus, on the ideas of testosterone. What would you want them to take away from this?
You'll shut down your natural production as a kid, so and it's just detrimental to you, your family, your life overall, and your general well-being. I think it has tremendous benefits, but not starting so young, because there's so many different ways and routes to go. And there's plenty of avenues to go down too. Like, you don't have to rely on your gym buddy to give you something that he just made in his basement. You know,
Exactly.
Like, A, that should sketch you out, and then B, it's just really not good for you in general, because you won't have kids. It's really just going to shut you down.
For sure.
Because they're going to give you dosages that are like 10 times the amount. It's really scary, and it's just, you want to look out for your own safety and well-being. Looking at the not older, but the elderly men population in that age range from 40, 50, 60.
Whoa. What the fuck, dude?
Older.
Did you say elderly.
I
is
didn't mean
40
that.
to
That was
50?
even worse.
Yeah.
Old men
This is
over
the
here.
last time Matt's
Scratch
coming on
that.
this
Scratch it.
podcast.
So for these old heads, what do you got?
So the hags. So in this population is where you'll see those decline in your levels. Okay, so that's where our body tends to naturally shut down. Anyways, it's around 40, 45. Even, I mean, we're seeing it pushing down lower, 35 now. We're seeing those levels come down significantly over time. And if you're just curious, I think it's just go get tested by a trusted provider, by somebody who you think will help you in the long run. Like, do some research on your own. Like, you can go online and look at these testosterone therapy clinics online, and we call them the T-mills. Like, they just pop them out like candy too, and they're not going to care about your overall health and wellness, because we're looking at not just testosterone, we're also looking at your thyroid, your DHEA, your melatonin, your cholesterol, your insulin resistance,
for sure.
cardiovascular health. Like, we want to do things the right way.
And you're rechecking. We're redoing labs. How often are we redoing my labs?
So we can redo. So that was another thing to bring up too. I know we have a lot of time, but we go treat our patients off of your symptoms. So, like, if Joel's not really feeling the effects off of any of these things, and it's 4 weeks down the line, I'm going to have him increase his dose. I'm going to see what's going on. Maybe we can increase this to see what benefits he can get from it.
What if my levels are too high?
If they're too high, I don't care, because optimal is where you are, okay?
Exactly,
I don't look at a normal, like, high level as bad, because we look at also, we didn't get down into, like, the physiological or, like, scientific aspect of free testosterone versus total and stuff like that. But
we'll have more time.
We'll have
in the
more
future
time
to
eventually,
get
but
in
that's
there.
where we really look at is the free testosterone levels too, and to get you into these, like, that ranges of optimal is where we look, because normal isn't optimal. Normal is what we looked at right here, and that's not where you are. Technically, Joel's normal, but his level is 327.
But I guess part of this process to kind of close this out, I'm a weekend. Is there a time frame when you say you got to go get your labs checked?
Usually we like to do within 8 to 12 weeks. So we like to do that, and we like to do a follow-up afterwards. Any type of dosing change, we do 8-week follow-up just to see how you're responding. See we also like to see the effects of the medication to correlate with the symptoms. So that's kind of how.
When do you think I should start feeling something, if I will?
So 2 to 4 weeks is when you start to feel, like, psychological effects. 4 to 8 weeks is when you start to feel physiological effects, and then rough estimate 3 to 6 months is when you feel like you can see your labs actually start improving, visceral fat will decrease, your insulin sensitivity will start to decrease too, and increase, I should say, resistance will decrease. All of those types of things start to improve within 3 to 6 months, 6 to 9 months, like ballpark range, and that's where you really totally get to where your optimal level is at that point too. So it can take up to a year. I like to shoot for 6 months, so that's kind of how it works.
Nice. And then, just to sort of wrap it up here, but also kind of plug your business title, Testosterone Weight Loss in Medfield, correct?
Medfield, Mass, yes.
And just so everyone knows too, I try to refer a bunch of my friends over to you, because I really think it's super important to look at all of this. And I think a lot of my friends in the communities that I hang out with are opening their eyes to what's actually important to look at when it comes to health and wellness, and to kind of stray away from the traditional healthcare. And you guys specifically are great. I mean, I'll shoot you a text whenever I'm concerned about something, or if I want to see it.
Really
and
responsive.
You definitely really care, super responsive, and with how busy you are, it's a breath of fresh air in the health and wellness space to have someone like that's on your team. So I really appreciate that, and I definitely would recommend to anyone to get involved with what you guys got going on.
Is there a
appreciate
website
it.
that you guys?
Yeah, it's titlewellness.com, and then our Instagram is title TRT and weight loss.
Can people DM you on?
Yeah,
Instagram
anytime.
as well?
Cool.
DM us. We have a small following right now, but
Yeah.
we're looking to grow.
Sure that'll
And
pick
yeah,
up?
Yeah,
Yeah.
We're looking to grow, and we're looking to take this thing to the next level. To be honest, yeah.
Nut
so
butter
definitely.
providers.
Nut butter. There we go.
title testosterone
Yeah.
and weight loss.
Got to make a meme out of that one.
All right, Matt Tufts,
Awesome.
good job.
Thanks,
Next
guys.
time, hopefully we get to see Ariel.
Yeah, we got to bring her in the
But,
studio.
keep up
She
the
has a
great
lot
work.
more information than me, so
She's a lot better looking.
prepare
too,
yourself.
if you don't mind me saying.
She is better looking, 100%. That's why I married her.
Exactly.
Good job.
All right,
thanks, guys.
well done.
Awesome.